Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for attending this CPD session on the new specification for design and technology at GCSE for WJEC. So thanks very much for attending this afternoon. My name is Jan Crouch. I'm the subject advisor here for design and technology. So I've had a lot to do with the presentations and the CPD that will be involved around the release of the new specification. With me today in the background are Jason Cates, who is the subject officer, who many of you will know. And we also have Dowie Thomas, who's one of our senior examiners, and he is also going to be making the presentation in Wealth Medium on Thursday, which some of you may be attending. I'm going to go through the presentation this afternoon. You can probably see me at the moment on your screens, just for a quick hello. I'm going to go away now and I'm going to maximise the presentation so that you can see it to its best advantage. We will be taking questions. We do have some already. I'll run through this again, but we will be taking questions at the end. If you do have questions that you want to add, if you could type them into the Q&A, then we will review them and come back to you at specific points. Thanks very much. Okay, so you will all probably know quite well what the specification is. Hopefully you'll have had a chance to look through it. It's released on our website in the subject pages. Was released autumn 2025 for first teaching in September 2026. We are making a recording of this presentation today. It's being recorded now. You are not allowed to make your own recordings of it. However, we will be releasing this recording to you, as well as it being on the subject page in the future and part of the CPD tab, so that you will be able to have access to it when you wish to. As I said before, we do have some questions already, and if you have questions that you would like to add, then add them to the Q&A and I will come to them in due course. We have sent some pre-event materials to you, and this presentation will be sent to the same address as that at the end. And today's agenda, we're starting now. We're going to run through basically what the specification is, what's different now compared to what it was previously, look at the structure, the 3 different pathways, some assessment, subject content, and then we will close at 5 o'clock. So really the qualification has been developed with the whole curriculum for Wales for purposes in mind, so addressing the issues of ambitious, capable learners, enterprising creative contributors, ethical informed citizens of Wales, and healthy confident individuals. Design and technology fits into this curriculum for Wales idea really, really well. The core requirements is a perfect fit for our subject, so that has been a real positive. We sit within the science and technology area of learning and experience, and you will be able to read this, these comments, these bullet points on the slide for yourselves. I'll just let you do that for a little moment. So it's really developing the curiosity, asking questions about our world, being able to evaluate materials, outcomes, and specifically addressing areas of climate emergency, and also being responsible designers and citizens, enabling our young people to develop ideas that are positive for the world around them. The principles of progression as part of the curriculum for Wales, you will recognise, no doubt. The progression in learning here in design and technology is not, it's a very cyclical way of learning, particularly with the iterative design notion, which we will go into in a little bit more depth further on. So they are building on knowledge that they will probably have gained in years 7, 8 and 9 and developing that for year 10 and 11 into outcomes, knowledge and outcomes, which enable them to develop this iterative approach to problem solving and asking these questions to enable their thinking beyond the classroom. So the key considerations for design and technology that were required by Qualifications Wales was to really be supporting this idea of accuracy, precision, and developing all the notions through continual testing, evaluating and developing, and also reintroducing a renewed emphasis on craftsmanship into the design and technology syllabus. Okay, we're going to move on now to the qualification structure and content. And if you've got any questions about that part of the presentation so far, again, drop them into the Q&A and we can address them at the end. Okay, the qualification structure has slightly changed. We have gone into a different arrangement for the marks. It is still a linear qualification. It is not tiered, so there is only one paper. There's not a foundation and higher paper. There is one single paper. The examination will be taking place digitally, and there will be examples of the digital examination which will be released in December on the sample assessment material. So we will start teaching this, or you will start teaching this in September 2026. And you can see the graphic of the outline of the qualification here, where the Unit 1, which is the examination element of the paper, will be worth 80 marks, but 30% of the qualification. And Unit 2, which is the design project, will be worth 100 marks and is 70% of the qualification. So that is quite a significant change in how in the weighting of that. You'll see there that the contextual challenge will be released earlier in the year. It will be released on April the 1st, giving a little more time to that. And as now, assessments will all be submitted at the end of the series, at the end of Year 11. So this slide here is a synopsis of the changes. It's essentially a contents page. So I'm going to run through them very, very quickly just now, and then we'll go into a little more depth in the next few slides. So currently, as you know, it's 50-50 for the exam and the design task, but as we've just referred to it being 70 and 30% now in the new world. Currently a 2-hour exam, and it will be a 90-minute exam in the future, digitally set. Contextual challenge release date has changed to allow for a little more time. The range of marks has been adjusted so that there is a narrower range, with the highest mark in question being 5. The core knowledge has been ameliorated and slightly changed. We'll go through that in a little detail. The in-depth knowledge is still pathway dependent, but each, whether it's engineering design, fashion and textile, or product design, each piece of knowledge there is pathway dependent. In Unit 2, there were 9 topic areas. They have been redesigned into 6 topic areas, and then the in-depth questions again will be across each individual pathway. And the assessment objectives for the qualification as a whole have been adjusted, and we'll look at that in more detail in a moment. As well, the NEA assessment strands have been updated. Now, we're not going to be able to answer all of your questions here today. We do have face-to-face events, which will be going to every local authority in the new year. So just bear that in mind. We're not expecting to answer every question, answer all of your concerns this afternoon. We will have other forums where we will be developing on that too. Okay, so back to this change in weighting between from 50-50 to a 70-30 split. So this has come about because the There was a group of people really looking at the assessment and looking at the new qualifications, so a subject level working group, which was open to a wide range of people to be part of, and it was felt that this was an important adjustment to be made. It was approved by Qualifications Wales, and we feel that it offers an important adjustment and an important piece. It's an attraction to the subject, really, to be good for learners and centres to be able to really expose this depth of knowledge and creative investigation that can be developed in the design project. Unit 1 will now have 80 marks instead of the previous 100. They will be given, learners will still be given the opportunity to show their knowledge in a wide range of knowledge, understanding and skills. And they will have the opportunity to really be differentiated. So there are fewer complex evaluative questions, as it's been felt that that is better suited to being approached in the NEA element of the course. And those questions will be will have less import in the digital examination. So we'll have a look at the range of tariff questions soon. Unit 2 is 100 marks, and so it will be just as it is just now. There has, as I said before, been some adjustment to the assessment bandings. We'll look at that towards the end of this section of the presentation. The iterative design process still will be called the contextual challenge, and learners will still have a choice of 3 very open starting points for the design and make task. The digital examination is a requirement, and it enables learners here, as Qualification Wales desired, to make appropriate use of technology to enable them to sit assessments. So whilst we recognise that the digitalisation of that brings great potential, we understand that there will be some apprehension around this from a minority of centres. It is, however, a requirement from Qualifications Wales. The duration of the online exam is 1 hour and 30 minutes, so 90 minutes, which is a reduction, obviously, from the 2 hours currently. Because the questions are less extended in terms of evaluative input, it is felt that this should give enough time to answer the questions well, and yet at the same time to avoid students getting fatigued by the paper, particularly because it's online, and it will enable people to access the questions fairly across the board. Okay, the contextual challenge, which will be released on the 1st of April from now on, is currently released on the 1st of June, so that will give a couple of extra months to enable learners to have access to that element of the qualification. So they will be able to download it. Teacher, you will be able to download it on the 1st of April. It is up to you when you release that. So you could release it on the 1st of April. You could choose to release it a week later or so, but it is available for you then. Although it will be released slightly earlier in year 10, it is still for submission. The marks are still for submission at the end of year 11. And these contextual challenges will be available in April 2027 for the first time. This has been changed because, of course, there's an additional weighting for the NEA going up to 70%. So it enables you as centres to prepare learners better, and for learners to get a little bit of extra time for learners to complete their design project. They can, in fact, they can complete Unit 2 at any point after the contextual challenge has been released. So again, that is up to you whether you call that in at the, in the second term of Year 11, or whether you let it go further, that will be for you to decide. There is a range of mark tariffs in the exam that we've referred to a few times. Currently, the mark tariffs are much higher than this. They are now going to be from 1 to 5 marks. And there will be some multiple choice questions. There will be no drawing questions because it's an online digital exam. And the wording of the higher tariff questions will be accessible to all candidates so that they are all able to attempt the questions. So they will enable higher achieving students to be able to access those high marks and enabling all students to have access to the paper accordingly. Okay, in core knowledge areas, currently there are 6 topic areas, and they have been adjusted so that some really modernised and brought up to date, so that some of the topics have been brought together. So impact of new and emerging technologies, along with the evaluation of those new and emerging technologies, is simply one topic area now. You'll see here that some adjustments to bring them up to date, such as energy storage and renewability, will be a topic instead of just energy. So you can see here, this graph indicates some of the slight changes to that. The investigation and analysing the work of others becomes more formally, perhaps, contemporary design thinking, and has the opportunity to refer to historical and cultural influences too. In Unit 1, there will still be pathway-dependent elements to the questions. So engineering design requirements, I don't know if you've had a chance to have a look at the specification yet, but it is very clearly set out where there is the core knowledge and then the elements for the specialist area. So engineering design, which starts on page 15, fashion and textiles, which starts on page 21, and product design, which starts on page 28 for the Unit 1 elements of the qualification. And we will go through these in a great deal more detail when we have the face-to-face events in February and March. But it is worth, if you haven't already, it is definitely worth having a look at the specification and running through. It's very detailed and should give you some excellent information as to what areas you need to cover in order to expose your students to the exam areas as well as the NEA areas. Okay, in Unit 2, there were 9 topic areas in the current, or there are 9 topic areas in the current specification, and that will be ameliorated into being 6 topic areas. So the contextual challenge and user, very clearly about that, very clearly about user-centered design, and we will talk a little more about that, and we will talk quite extensively about that in the face-to-face presentations themselves. Research and investigation, design briefs and specification, very important. And then iterative design, where there are 3 different areas, well, in fact, 3 or 4 different areas from the previous specification, and combines them into one section called, which is iterative design, a very important element of the NEA. Manufacturing prototypes and analysing and evaluating design decisions in prototypes equally has more import, and we will look at that when we look at the mark allocation. Then the in-depth knowledge, all of the in-depth knowledge, each pathway has in-depth knowledge on materials and components, marking out methods, specialist techniques and processes, and surface treatments and finishes, although they will be different, pathway dependent. So for instance, fashion and textiles will have a different set of requirements to product design, which will have a different set of requirements to engineering design. And here we can see the assessment objective mark allocation really across each of the units. The previous assessment objectives are listed there in the grey box. So there's some changes to that in the new box on the right-hand side, which should be fairly easy to understand. So you can read the semantics of that, the subtle differences in some cases, and importantly, look at the changes to the mark allocation in the table below, where assessment objective 1 and 2 is assessed in unit 1, and there is no part of AO3 or AO4 which is assessed in unit 1, the exam, and AO1 is not at all assessed in the NEA. The NEA covers assessment objective 2, 3 and 4. So you can see how they are split there. That table, that graphic makes that very clear. And it also shows the weightings. So AO1 being 15%, AO2 30%, AO3 35%, and AO4 being 20% there. So no doubt there will be questions about that. They may come up today, but there will certainly be discussions around this at the face-to-face events in the new year. And here we go into it just in a little bit more detail. AO1 being the demonstration and application of knowledge is really most suited for the exam, the digital examination. So that is where it will be assessed. AO2 assessed in both units so that the knowledge and understanding is applied perhaps in different ways, but certainly across both the exam and into the NEA as well. AO3 and 4 only assessed in the NEA. And I think when you read and develop into the specification, that will become clear. The assessment strands are slightly different, and the weightings to these assessment strands you can see here. So there is an emphasis, really, an emphasis on evaluation. So if you look, well, it's highlighted in the bottom box, in the white box at the bottom, there are 30 marks is highlighted in green, and that is where we have the iterative design and development of ideas, and woven into that element is a requirement to evaluate design development as it goes along. So that element of evaluation will be marked inside that section of the NEA. Analysing and evaluating a prototype's fitness for purpose. Currently, evaluation really sits on that last mark band, but this is a change. This is something where we are literally expecting you to evaluate the final prototype. So it's an important mark. It's quite a big mark for that. And from that, you can see how the importance of making a prototype and being able to assess that prototype, maybe making what changes might be made to it, really involving users' input into that. Those are all going to be highly valued to gain marks in that area. You can see there identifying some other slight changes. The production of the high quality functioning prototype has gained marks, and that is because this element of craftsmanship is renewing its importance in the qualification. So that will be high quality making skills related to personally developed product. Okay, I'm going to take a little pause just for a moment, just to scan the questions that we've got coming in. So bear with me. I will move on to, well, actually, what I'll do is I will go back to the slide previously so that you can just have a little reflection on that while I'm doing so. Okay. So there are some questions which have come in. You'll be able to review them in the chat. and I will come to them later on in the presentation. Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to go in and look a bit more closely at the design and technology pathways, which remain the same as engineering design, fashion and textiles, and product design, the three pathways that you know and love at the moment. As now, the same pathway needs to be taken for the exam as is developed in the NEA. So they are both absolutely together on that. So we have here an outline in the engineering design, what they need to know and look at in Unit 1. So have a quick read through that. And then in Unit 2, as I mentioned before, in Unit 2, all of the pathways requirements are the same. For fashion and textiles, very similar nature for Unit 1, but obviously taking on board that specialist nature of the particular pathway. Unit 2, having the same topic headings. Likewise, product design. You will see some crossover. For instance, here we got ferrous and non-ferrous metals for engineering design and for product design. They are not identical, so it is definitely worth reading the specification for that. And also we are developing resources, which I'll talk about later on. So again, they are not the same either. Subject specific for engineering design and separately for product design. Okay, subject content now. So just as now, Unit 1 will be design and technology in the 21st century, and Unit 2 will be the design project, which we talk about as non-examined assessment or NEA. And they select the pathway available in your specific centre, whatever it is you're offered. They can take more than one pathway. They can choose to do 2 GCSEs, although there are obviously issues for your centre should they choose to do that in the reporting of their progress and so on. Again, we've talked about before, same pathway for each unit. Now, the specification currently, or the new specification, will look slightly different from the current specification, and it has some statements which I want to run through with you today so that you will begin to have an idea of what we mean by these words. They are common for a lot of the qualification, new qualifications as part of Qualified for the Future. So we have learners should know, should be able to, should understand, and should be aware of, as well as simply are required to. We have some illustrations of what that means in design and technology here. The specification, these images here are all extracts directly from the specification. And you'll see that in the first section, it lists the topics: new and emerging technologies, modern and smart materials, sustainable design, energy storage and renewability, and contemporary design thinking, historical and cultural influences. So this is from Unit 1 4. And here below that, it says content, excuse me, new and emerging technologies. So that is 1.1.1. It is referring to the first element of that part of the specification. On the right-hand side is the amplification of what that means. So this is a list, essentially, of all the things that are inside that knowledge area. So here it says learners should know how technology impacts product development, including market pull and technology push. So they need to know that. And that is something that they can be, that they will be tested on directly. Learners should understand how new and emerging technologies can impact industry and enterprise, and so on down that list. So they need to have a broader knowledge and be able to adapt that knowledge into responding to questions on that. Here it is in more detail. So learners should know is when learners are required to demonstrate basic knowledge and understanding. So you can imagine here that might respond to the 1 and 2 mark questions that you would expect to see on the paper. Learners should be able to, when they need to apply that knowledge and understanding, and demonstrate perhaps an application of practical skills. So they might need to explain something and interpret something. Learners should understand is when learners are required to demonstrate greater depth of knowledge and the application of that knowledge. And that might apply to something that they know very well, but equally they might have to adapt that into something new. They need to show their understanding of the subject area that is being referred to. Learners should be aware of is a bit more background, so they need to they don't need to understand every detail of what is being what is being spoken about or taught, but they certainly will need to have a broad understanding of it. And there will be a lot of input on the new guidance for teaching documents, which will help to guide you as teachers on how to approach that. And that document will be available in January of next year, so prior to the face-to-face events. And then learners are required to, that is simply what is required from the individual units. So you will be able to read the specification with, this is outlined in the specification, so you will be able to read the specification with that in mind and go through the specification and really have a good trawl through and see which fits into each section there. And that is in the amplification, very clearly written in the amplification. When we say including, it indicates that the content must be taught. Yeah, so it could easily be a requirement in the assessment. However, if we say, for example, in the specification, that gives you a broader context and it is for guidance, and you can select alternative examples. You can obviously, in both cases, you can expand on the examples, but including and for example have very specific meanings. Okay, so examples here of what learners should know. And these are, you will see here in Unit 1, new emerging technologies we've already talked about. So for example, here, modern and smart materials, things like what is photochromic materials, what is thermochromic, shape memory alloys, polymorph, biometrics. They need to know what that is. These are just extracts. This is far from exhaustive. You need to go through the specification in your own time and have a good prowl through it. Learners should be able to, so some examples here of what learners should be able to illustrate the stem of this question. So in Unit 1, they should be able to, in sustainable design, conduct a life cycle analysis. So if anybody's not aware of what that might cover, then you need to delve into that and dig a little deeper on the environmental impact from cradle to grave. As I say, there will be some resources, there will be resources supporting this, and we'll talk about that later on. In Unit 2, they need to be able to explore and investigate existing products, looking in their NEA at other products around them to analyse perhaps and evaluate, to inform their own decisions, and equally to write design briefs. Really important, this one, write design briefs and for the specific needs and wants and interests of their user. Writing specifications that are pertinent and to the point, and not just general specifications that could be written about any product. We really want these to be addressing the user's needs and the specific product area and project of that learner. Learners should understand, for instance, how new and emerging technologies impact industry and enterprise. And you can read your way through that list. Interesting ones here, the advantages and disadvantages of CAD, augmented reality, virtual reality, and AI, all emerging, increasingly emerging as important in our design and technology subject area. Then learners should understand in Unit 2 particularly that contexts are simply a starting point to inform possible outcomes, and you can see that for yourself and go through the rest of the specification. Learners should be aware of, for instance, industrial processes for mass production, for different production methods, and the types of industrial tooling and so on that may go into manufacture in their specific area of our pathway. Likewise, specialist techniques and processes here in Unit 2. In this case, showing wastage addition, deforming and reforming. There are a whole load of other elements in the specification. This is simply an extract to illustrate what we're talking about. And learners are required to identify problems and opportunities for design and the development of possible briefs. None of these will be hugely different from what many of you are doing at the moment, and most of you will be doing this extremely well. It's really just developing this and ensuring that you're meeting the new specification requirements. Learners are required to respond thoughtfully and make informed judgments when evaluating their own prototype. This is of increasing importance. We have here a suggested timeline for the course from year 10 through into the end of year 11. It's obviously on this screen, it's really small. We will be, you will get a copy of this, you can have a look at it. It is almost certainly what many of you are doing at the moment. There should be nothing new in this particularly, but for those people who are new teachers, or maybe there are some people who are not a specialist in some of the subject pathways than others, this might give additional guidance. And it may be that just refreshing your knowledge and casting your eye over it to see how your own teaching compares with this, just for peace of mind. But this, it's not a requirement, it is simply a suggested timeline to take you to right through the course of year 10 into year 11. We can go into that, we'll probably go into that a little bit more in the face-to-face. Coming up with ideas on how you could generate some of these in a timely fashion. Okay, so again, actually, I'm going to put that slide back up while I have a little look at the questions that have come in. So just if you take a moment to see if you can read that, hopefully you can. Okay, we are coming towards the question and answer session, so I will be able to take that very soon. Okay, moving on to assessment and how this is being assessed. We've already talked about the different weightings and the different mark allocation, or different percentage of mark allocation across different AOs. You've seen that graph before, but it's again worth taking note of that Unit 1 will assess AO1 and AO2 only, whereas the NEA will take AO2, 3 and 4. I think take a moment to read this slide. I think we've pretty much covered everything that is in here. 70% of the qualification. And as now, centres will mark the, will assess the NEA, and we will do external moderation visits. I think that answers actually one of the questions which is in the chat. And we will continue to be doing visiting moderation to ensure that the mark standards are all aligned with the standard set by WJEC. So the submission of marks for Unit 2 will be exactly as now in the summer of Year 11. So when you put your marks in, you will, as normal, have a sample generated for moderation. The GCSE itself will stay being from A star to G, where A star is the highest, exactly as is now, and a U will still be available for those who do not reach the minimum standard. So no changes there at all. There will be sample assessment materials, quite a couple of important documents on sample assessment materials, which will be released in December of this year, and you will be able to access them online. You can see some extracts of these here. These are in draft format. They still are draft, but on the left-hand side there, that is an image of the anticipated online exam. So we will be able to, and we will go through them, we'll be able to use them in the face-to-face elements, and you will be able to use them for your mocks, for instance, should you wish to, so you won't be wanting to share them too widely. You'll see as well some extracts from the assessment strands, where it's shown there AO3. As I say, these are not yet released, so these are in draft format, but they will be released in December. Okay, so we're going to come on to some questions and answers. I do have some that have come in previously, so I'll deal with them first. So should candidates be encouraged to work from primary research material to develop their ideas? Strongly recommended, and this will be a whole area that when the guidance for teaching comes out on to accompany the specification, you'll be able to get quite a lot of support material and interesting ideas how to develop that in there. Can you as teachers provide feedback to learners about the work after they've started Unit 2? And well, as part of JCQ's requirements, you can read the answer here, but I would strongly recommend that you as D&T teachers read the JCQ guidance on this, because there are quite stringent rules around what teachers can and can input to learners on non-examined assessment materials. So, for instance, it is not advised, you can't be guiding them on which of the contextual challenges. You need to enable them to make those decisions. But read that document. There will be a link to it in the document, in the PowerPoint that you get sent to you. Can learners start working on Unit 2 at any time in the course? So for instance, can they start working in it in June or even in September of Year 11? And the answer to that is technically yes, although you need to give them enough time to get the extended area of time is, 70% of the qualification now, you will want to use that extra time wisely. But technically, it is up to you as teachers when you release that, as long as it is after the 1st of April. Can the whole class do the same topic? We touched on that previously. You're not allowed to specify the task or brief, or in this case, contextual challenge. It must be the learner's decision. And some questions come in for Unit 2. Will teachers have access to the contextual challenge before the learners? You will have access to them on the 1st of April. It is up to you when you release that to your learners. It may be that you want to prepare a presentation for them, or it may be you want to give it to them right away. That is your choice. Okay, and then we have some further questions that have come in already. So I'm going to go through them one by one. And I noticed that one or two of them have already had input. So bear with me on that. Will moderators be able to give verbal feedback at the end of the moderation visit? No. It's a JCQ requirement. We are not allowed to give any verbal feedback to centres at all. Quite apart from anything else, the moderators won't know the outcomes, so it would be unprofessional of them to give you feedback, and they should, and that will be the same as now. Volume of material in the current specification is challenging to deliver in the time given. The new spec, while slightly reduced, does not seem to have addressed this. It looks like we have a similar volume of content, but the overall percentage value is reduced. We have worked hard to try and be as clear as possible about what the requirements are there. So the specification is very clear that we believe it is unambiguous and should help to clarify some of the subject areas that need to be covered. We appreciate that there's across design and technology, it is a large subject area. We have worked hard to make it work into that new exam guidance. And there is, with the digital exam and the changes in the approach to the questions, the slight changes in the approach to the questions, we believe that will be better for your learners and for you as teachers as well. Will the digital exam be accessed via Surpass? I don't know the answer to how exactly it will be accessed at this stage. That's something that we will be able to go into hopefully in more depth when we come to the face-to-face events in the new year. So apologies for not being able to answer that fully at the moment. Can I check whether, whoops, I've just moved it down. Can I check whether the new NEA will have any set template or page structure? No, it will not have any set template. And in fact, JCQ prohibit templates and so on. We will not be offering that. It is up to your learners to develop how they present their design portfolios, as you seem to be suggesting there. Actually, I noticed that Jason has replied to that to confirm the same. Is the e-portfolio and sketchbook all done under supervision at school? What if a student completes textile samples or drawings at home and wants to submit them in their sketchbook? You need to be able to authenticate the learner's work. So that is really the key requirements there. I'm not sure Jason may want to add to that in the, he may wish to add to that. Let me know, Jason, if you do. Okay, contemporary design thinking, historical and cultural influences in product design, mentions Frank Lloyd Wright and Alessi & Co. Are these the only designers that the students will be tested on in the exam? In the specification lists in the product design pathway and in engineering design and in fashion and textiles, specific designers and design groups that may be tested in the exam. I mean, it is up to you. If you want to broaden the learner's experience, that is up to you. But those are the ones that may be tested in the exam. Did I hear right? Can they do two D&T? Can they do two design and technology subjects? They can. They have the right to do for instance, product design and fashion and textiles, should they wish to, should your centre choose to offer that, they have the right to get to design and technology GCSEs. Although there are issues for centres and reporting progress and achievement in that. So it's definitely worth checking with your senior leadership team whether that is available in your centre. Actually, and I noticed that, yeah, Jason has also replied to that to confirm 3 possible pathways. Why the 11 or 14 marks split on the first and last NEA mark scheme sections? Yeah, good question. I'm just going to try and I'm going to flip back to that actually if I can. Where are we? Where are we? I've lost it actually. I think it's slightly further on from here. No, I can't find it at the moment. Sorry about that. Yes, it is because it was felt it's not an anomaly, it's not a mistake. We could have had the 15 marks and 10 marks for the briefing section, but it was felt that that extra mark reflected what the requirement was in that element of the specification. So it is simply that. Will any teaching resources be released to assist with the delivery? Yes, we have a whole range of digital resources, blended learning modules and knowledge organisers, which are being developed now currently by our resources team, which are designed to assist and support revision, to assist you and to support revision for Unit 1. There will also be, in due course, there will be walkthroughs for the NEA, and they will be available further into the academic year. So really, probably in the 3rd term of the academic year. And any bookable new and emerging technology equipment resources, really when they are released, have a look at what is going to be released on our website and then take it from there, as Jason has indicated. Will approved and accredited textbooks be coming out? As with previous specifications, we have not been approached by any publisher. We're not a publishing company. We are simply an exam board. So we have not been approached by any publishing company who wishes to create a textbook. We have resources that will cover all the elements of Unit 1. And as I say, we'll have walkthroughs to support NEA. You know, it may be in the future that a publisher comes to that. That is not in our remit to deal with. Are we able to share more detail about the digital examination, please? It's a big step away from the norm, and I need to know if our school considers taking the step to WJEC. I'm going to the sample assessment materials will be available and will be available online in December. So that's the moment that we're able to share better information about the digital exam. I'm afraid until then, we are not really able to go into that in a great deal of detail. However, by the time we get to the face-to-face events, we will be able to do that. And that will be for every local authority across Wales in February and March next year. So if you are a centre, one of the limited centres who has a choice, really you need to make that with the available resources you have at any given time. What do we mean by a digital examination, please? Is it one that pupils log on to a secure portal to complete? Again, in terms of the exact logistics of how that is going to be approached by centres, I'm not able to go into any detail on that at the moment, but hopefully it won't be too painful and it will go smoothly. I mean, we're obviously working hard to make that the case. What are the guided learning hours for Unit 2? I notice here 40 hours. Actually, there is no change. There's other than there's an extra couple of months to build into Unit 2. The guided learning hours are written at the beginning of the specification, but off the top of my head, maybe Jason, you could make a comment there if you remember. Okay, when will the assessment mark scheme or the NEA be released? It's not currently part of the specification and would be useful to help plan your 10 projects and tasks for the future, if you can see how marks will be awarded. There's the beginnings of that in here. You can see the general outlines, the sample assessment material, which will go through that in maximum detail, will be available in December. And that is exactly what Jason's said and should reply to the other questions around about that. We've talked about moderation, and moderation will continue exactly as it is at the moment. So bear with me. We're in the Isle of Man. Will there be opportunities for training and specification? Nia, our professional learning director, will be able to answer that. There will be opportunities for Isle of Man to have professional learning event. Yes. I've cross-referenced the current spec with the new spec. Very little seems to have been taken out considering the percentage has changed dramatically. We have, as I said, I've covered that earlier. We have worked hard to ameliorate that to make it absolutely clear. The subject content is large. We have worked hard to make it manageable. In fact, manageability is one of the key criteria for the specification. So we have worked hard to make that as straightforward as possible. Can you confirm a learner must select only one area? You've just said that they can do two. I'm not quite sure. They can do in any given exam, in any given qualification. So if the qualification is, if the learner is doing engineering design, then they need to do Unit 1 and Unit 2 in engineering design. If they are doing a separate GCSE, that is what will cover that. They will need to do a separate GCSE, so Unit 1 in, say, fashion and textiles, and Unit 2 in fashion and textiles. That's what's meant by that. I'm going to pause. I'm going to have to hold on the questions now, just to finish off the presentation, which is almost at a conclusion. So bear with me while I flick back to the very end of this. Okay, you can see here that the dates are available for the different local authorities, and you'll be able to see them when you get the presentation. They will be available to every teacher and every centre in the whole of Wales that is in the local authority area. So we look forward to seeing you at that and come with all sorts of questions. There'll be activities and assessment details available then. Available now is the specification walkthrough online. There is the guidance for teaching available in January, the SAMs available in December. There will be a huge amount of resources across Unit 1 available online beginning in the new year and being released through the spring term. And then there will be walkthroughs for each of the pathways: engineering design, fashion and textiles, and product design, offered in that, probably in the summer term of this academic year. Please, we would greatly appreciate if you could use the QR code to give us some feedback about today's event. Hopefully we've been able to answer the most burning of your immediate questions and at least taken you for a bit of a walkthrough through the specification. This is available on your own PowerPoints that you will have, but please do use your cameras to access the QR code now and give us some feedback, please. I'm just going to pause that on there for 1 minute. If you have asked a question that hasn't been able to be answered this afternoon, you're more than welcome to send it in to us at the Design and Technology mailbox. which is design and technology at wjec.co.uk. I'm just going to move on to that slide now. So the email address is there. Thank you very much for attending today. If you want to get in touch with us, you know who we are, hopefully now, especially on this slide. I'm Jan Crouch. Jason Cates is the subject officer, and he is very ably supported by Jodie Mearing-Lane, who many of you will know. Do get in touch with us if you've got further queries. As I say, I hope we've been able to give you a good run through of the specification as at least a starting point. And we look forward to seeing you in the face-to-face events in February and March. Thanks very much.
Okay, Jan, I'll end the event then.
Thank you.